Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. In today's conversation with Sarah Kreuger, we're talking about fire safety in Wake County's public schools. When we send our children to school, there are so many things we worry about. But when was the last time you thought about fire safety in the building where your children attend class? WRAL Investigates poured over thousands of pages of fire inspection reports in Wake County schools from January to July to get a fuller picture of this issue. They found 2,700 violations in this time period. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So you spoke to the Wake County Fire Services and Emergency Management Deputy Director. Explain how often they do these inspections and really what are they looking for?
Yeah, so by state law, every public school has to be inspected 2 times a year. So this is something that keeps inspectors very busy. There are roughly 200 public schools. So you can imagine these are incredibly tedious inspections. They are looking for so many things. They literally open every door. They go into every classroom, look in every corner. They're looking for things like fire alarms, fire extinguishers, making sure those are all up to date, and then things like exit doors, that they open properly, and down to minutia, extension cords, decorations. There can't be too many decorations, for example, or that is considered a fire hazard.
And obviously, they do this in many places. I mean, businesses, public buildings, things like that. But the school inspections are very important to a lot of us and especially to parents because, you know, these are children who are vulnerable and we want those places to be safe. What are some of the more common violations that they find?
So I saw a lot of violations for extension cords, devices that were plugged into an extension cord rather than into the wall directly. I also saw a lot of things like fire extinguishers and hydrants that had not been inspected or maintained often enough, and a lot of doors that aren't latching or closing properly. Decorations that covered too much of a door or a classroom. We talked about that being a fire hazard. And then I also saw a lot of blocked exit doors. They were blocked by different things. I remember in one case there was an exit door that was blocked by a cheer mat, for example, and in another case blocked by a picnic table.
And we know, from fires in modern history in North Carolina, that blocked doors or locked doors in terms of exit doors can lead to fatal consequences if there is a fire in a building. Well, we will be right back after the break with more on which schools fared the worst in these inspections. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. So I know you looked at lots and lots of documents here, lots of reports, but what did you learn about the schools with the highest number of violations?
So the average number of violations in schools was about a dozen per school, but some schools had way more than that. The top one was Enloe High School. That was far and away number one with more than 120 violations. That was followed by Millbrook High School with 78, then Carroll Middle School, East Wake High School, and Heritage High School. So a lot of high schools in there, and that probably is because those schools are typically larger.
And so when we're talking about these violations, I know you mentioned the fact that the violations were more common, some of the more common ones. But let's talk about some of the ones that maybe weren't as common. I mean, what did you learn?
Yeah, so among those that stood out most to me, at one school, Score Academy in Garner, there was no fire alarm in the building at all. So that was pretty alarming. And at Weatherstone Elementary in Cary and York Elementary in Raleigh, there were some doors that had devices on them that prevented them from opening. And Braxton Tanner with the County Fire Marshal's office that I spoke with, he explained to me that some teachers add those devices to doors if they have students who may be prone to running away, or perhaps they teach exceptional children classes. And that was something that was a big issue to him as well, something that troubled him. And Mills Park Elementary over there, something stood out. There was a banner that was hanging that was blocking a sprinkler head. So in the event of that sprinkler head going off, of course, that would prevent the water from going where it needed to go.
How long did it take you all to do this? I mean, this had to be a really long investigation.
Oh my gosh, so many hours. So I divided up all of the inspection reports with our producer, Randall Kerr, and he went through half of them and I went through half of them. I can't say for him, maybe he was a little faster, but for me, I spent, definitely at least 10 hours going through all of them.
So when there is a violation, what happens next? I mean, do fire inspectors say, hey, you have a month or 2 months to fix this violation, and do they go back and check on that?
So Braxton Tanner said a lot of times his inspectors, when they notice a violation at a school, they will call a repair person right away while they are there, letting them know about this thing that needs to be fixed so they can get the ball rolling. And he says he has access to a database then that shows when each school made the repair, and that there's one person whose job it is really to manage all of these repairs and make sure that they are all happening. Then the next inspection, whenever that comes around, usually about 6 months later, inspectors will always go back and check the previous violations, make sure they have been fixed. And what we found going through the reports is sometimes they're not fixed. There are repeat violations. We saw that multiple times. That can result in a fine. So I noticed that some schools were getting $50 fines for, it was the second or third time that a fire inspector had pointed something out and no change had been made.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If do they get fined or something, some kind of incentive to say, hey, you really need to get this fixed. Mm-hmm. I know you brought this to the attention of some parents and students, and obviously this is just not something I think that a lot of us really think about. Mm-hmm. What did they say?
Yeah, I think, you and I both know as parents, my gosh, we have so many things we're already worrying about and thinking about. I think fire inspection records, probably not something that most parents would think to request or, even think about. So the parents that I did talk to were a little shocked to hear about all of the violations and, definitely concerned. The students that I spoke to some younger students alongside their parents, and they talked about how their teachers helped them to feel safe. So that was really comforting to hear. They had some wonderful things to say about the staff at their schools and, how they feel like they're in really good hands there.
Absolutely. Did you reach out to the school system?
I did. I have not yet gotten any kind of a response from them, so I will make sure to keep you all updated if we do hear back from them, if and when. We'll make sure that's a part of our story on WRAL.com.
And obviously, this is, a microcosm. We're looking at one particular school district, but obviously all school districts, I'm sure, are going through the same thing where they need to be inspected. There's probably a limited amount of people doing the inspections. And, there probably are some violations in other areas that we're just not aware of, but it's just very important.
Right. Yeah, I did a story last year in Durham and found very similar things, a lot of violations and a lot of fines. And ultimately, state law says it's up to the principal to get these fixed.
So clearly something very important to pay attention to. And Sarah, thank you so much for bringing this very important story to our attention. If you'd like to hear more episodes, please follow the WRAL Daily Download in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just about any podcast app. Once you follow the show, you'll automatically get new episodes every weekday. As always, thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download.